Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Hale. I'm running for sheriff in Monroe County. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Came down here in 1996 to attend Indiana University. Started working for the department in 2000. I was working at the Monroe County Correctional Center at that point. I worked there for 7 years. I worked my way up to captain of third shift for the last 3.5. Excuse me. In 2007, I switched over the road and I spent the next 15 years and currently working for the department. I'm a third shift sergeant. So with that being said, I have a unique experience. The amount of time I spent working in the jail gives me a unique ability to understand the liabilities and the culture with both staff and inmates alike. I'm also a father, or I should say I'm also married, and I'm a father of 2 young children. They both attend, or one attends Edgewood Primary and one will be there this fall. So with that being said, I understand the concerns of our parents. I share in those concerns. I want to keep our children as safe as possible. And I thank you for your time and look forward to the next questions.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ruben Marte, and I'm also running for Monroe County Sheriff. Let me tell you a little about myself in the short period of time that I have. I was raised in the South Bronx, New York City. Attended New York City University. And once I graduated from there, I got a job working, believe it or not, as a correctional officer in Rikers Island. For those of you who don't know Rikers Island, that's a big jail, okay? So I worked there for approximately about 2 years, and got the call to join the NYPD Academy, and I did. And while I was attending that academy, then I get the call to Indiana State Police. So at the present time, I stand in front of you serving the citizens of the state of Indiana for 31 years as a state trooper. My current rank, though, is a captain. Now, that being said, before I had the position to have now, I was a commander for the detectives for the southern part of Indiana, which meant if you take Indiana and divide it in half, from Indianapolis all the way down to the Ohio River, any major cases came through my desk. So I was responsible for the detectives for the state police for the southern part of Indiana. When we got a new superintendent about 8 years ago, I approached the superintendent and we had a long conversation, and we wanted to take a different direction for the state police. Now, this was not a knee-jerk reaction for Ferguson. What we wanted to do is try to take the lead on training our officers, our troopers, on cultural awareness for law enforcement. The reason being is because we find ourselves in a time where we have a truly issue with the community, black and brown community, and the police. So what we wanted to do is try to get ahead of that and have an actual training where we train our officers, de-escalation, understanding what people have different cultures that don't look like you. But at the same time, one of the things that we discovered, we also had to train and teach the public as well. If we did not actually train the public as well, it would not work the way it's working out. So I stand in front of you, I'm getting the look that I needed to stop. Oh, I got the red here. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see the red. I'm waiting for the red, so my apologies, I have to stop, okay? When I get on the roll, I keep going. I'm sorry, okay?
What if law enforcement wasn't required to respond to every mental health and substance abuse call that is made? What if our jail was part of a community comprehensive support program? What if our community worked together as one to establish intercepts and support systems that would prevent, interrupt, and end recidivism? Change is required. Law enforcement is not the answer to all of our problems. We have to establish alternate options and responses to mental health and substance abuse issues. We have to create community-oriented, problem-solving approaches for our high-risk populations. We have to have a jail that provides safety, dignity, and respect for all those people who are incarcerated and working within. Our jail is at the end of life. We have a report that tells us that our jail is unable to consistently provide the constitutional level of care required of incarcerated people. I am Angie Purdie. I'm a Monroe County resident for my life. I went to Steinsville Elementary, Edgewood Junior High, and Edgewood High School. Member of the Marching Mustangs. Thank you.
Hello, I am Joani Stalcup, and I am running for sheriff. I am your current elected coroner for Monroe County. I was elected initially in 2017, and I won my second term a year and a half ago. As some of you may or may not know, as a coroner, we are death investigators, a division of law enforcement, and work hand in hand with law enforcement from all jurisdictions, including the FBI, NTSB, the Indiana State Police, and local law enforcement agencies. In addition, the coroner of the county is also considered the highest ranking law enforcement in the county when it comes to death investigation. Over the past 5 years, as your elected coroner, I have watched as the number of drug overdose deaths have climbed. In Monroe County, that number doubled in 2019 to 2020. And in 2021, we had 54 deaths related to drug overdose. That is 54 deaths that potentially could have been avoided. As sheriff, I feel it would put me in a position to make a difference in those numbers in a positive way, by getting individuals with mental health issues and substance dependency that are in our care resources to help them. The sheriff's responsibility is the jail, its staff, the people housed in the jail, the deputies, and the administrative staff. As sheriff, you have the ability to make changes that will directly impact the safety and well-being of all individuals in a positive way, all of these individuals in a positive way. Compassion, transparency, accountability, upholding individuals' civil rights, equity, non-bias, and impartiality are all values, the traits a sheriff should promote and follow. I run my office that way currently, and I would run the sheriff's department the same way.
Believe it or not, there's actually one more candidate out there that's on the Republican ticket. So if my voice cracks today, I apologize. I've been going through a little sickness. I am not sick now, but if it cracks, I'm not 12 years old again. Just want to let you know. 30 years ago, I started working at the Sheriff's Department. I was a senior in high school when I got hired on the jail division. I actually started out 14. I was a what's called a Sheriff Explorer. Just give you a background. It's for people that are interested in joining the Sheriff's Department that's a kid, and you shadow some of the deputies that currently worked at the Sheriff's Department. I did that when I was 14. When I turned 18, I joined the jail division. 20 years old, I decided I wanted to apply for a road position. I applied thinking there was no way that it was going to ever happen. There was nobody else that looked like me when I applied there. I applied thinking, what do I have to lose? I'm here today because I made that jump and I applied. After getting hired on the road division, I was able to make it through different areas of the Sheriff's Department, making it to the rank of captain, where I led the detective division and I also led the road division. Under the last four sheriffs, I have been placed in command staff, including the current sheriff. You heard from her earlier, Brad Swain. I am still in a command position at the sheriff's office. What I plan to do as your next sheriff is take the good, eliminate the bad that I've learned from the four different sheriffs, and take the good and make good with it, and lead this department into the future. Change some of the things that we have currently. Allow people to come up to us again and speak to us as human beings and enjoy the fact that they're speaking to policemen. We have lost that. We have lost people that people feel like they can't come up to us. I will stop. I want to bring back people to come up to us and be happy to speak to the policeman again. Thank you. I will have more to share, and I'm sure this is not going to be the last time I'll get the red dot. Thank you. I'm sorry.
So you just pay attention to the car, because latest 5 candidates, we're going to be here till like 12 o'clock. So we'll see you all. All right, first question. With the repeal of handgun permits, do you believe additional protocols should be put in place to protect your officers or the public?
So when that legislation came out, you know, the legislators make the law. We in law enforcement enforce it. So for us, you know, when we train that we anticipate there's going to be a weapon in that vehicle. So that's one thing. But the issue is this. When we had a chance to, the state police had 13 different checkpoints before someone got a gun permit. At the present time, if someone gets a weapon and we don't have a chance to check, we have a tremendous issue with the mentally ill. There's no way that now we could know if a person has a weapon is mentally ill or not. And that's serious for us. So that really concerns me most of all, because again, at least we had a chance to check someone's record and make sure they were a proper person to carry a weapon when we could actually do an actual check, complete check by Indiana statute. But now, when that changed, it puts us in a situation now that we just don't know who we have in front of us if they have a mental issue. And I make sure I didn't get the yellow card or red card this time.
First of all, just oof. Really? This is House Enrolled Act 1296. And in February of this year, Doug Carter, the superintendent of the state police, he actually spoke to the legislature, and he said, I want to quote this for you. I sure hope you choose to show deference to law enforcement professionals that understand the magnitude and the frontline effects of this legislation. He was basically called to task in the paper for those comments. Later in March, just a few days ago, our governor, who also appointed Mr. Carter as the superintendent for the state police, signed this law into effect. Mr. Carter at this time says, in response, I will work with law enforcement leaders across our state to make necessary changes to firearms enforcement, as well as identifying the best way to identify individuals who are not allowed to carry a firearm as defined by statute. I don't know about you, but when I heard that, when I read that, that tells me that the highest level of our state's police doesn't have an answer for this House Enrolled Act. The question was, how do we ensure the safety for our officers or for our public? I don't have an answer for you for that. I want to hear from you. We all need to hear from you. We all need to look out for each other and for our officers. Thank you.
HB 1296. It puts an incredibly large burden on our already overworked and overstressed law enforcement officers statewide. Beginning this year, officers no longer have the tool of the handgun permit to determine whether someone is rightfully concealing or open carrying a firearm in Indiana. Every law enforcement department across the state is currently studying how to determine rightful ownership under the new law to ensure their safety and the safety of the community. A good suggestion would be for all departments to get on board with encouraging the citizens of their jurisdictions to still obtain a proper handgun license so as to be able to lawfully carry in the 31 states that recognize Indiana's permitting process, and in the case of an interaction with an officer, be able to make the process of identifying their lawful ownership quickly and easily without question. The new bill definitely poses a challenge, and one that should be on the front burner of every law enforcement agency in Indiana to ensure the safety of not just the law enforcement officers, but the citizens of the state as well.
A sign that I'm getting older. I have to take my glasses off to be able to read. As you most likely know, a lot of the law enforcement officials oppose this law. One of the things we already teach our officers now, and that is everyone you deal with, there's always at least one gun in the fight, if it's mine or if it's theirs. So we already know that there's a possibility that somebody may have a gun on them. This law does not help us at all. As Ruben stated earlier, the mental health crisis, the people that have that, yeah, the law still allows for them, if they reach a certain point, they cannot have a gun, and mental issues is one of those. However, when they had a permit, we were able to tell who had a gun and who didn't. We stopped the vehicle, we could run the plate, and we could tell if they had a personal carry permit. Now we can't do that. It's just making our job a whole lot harder than what it has to be. I mean, gun violence in America is too high as it is. Why make it worse than what it had to have been? I don't understand the reason for the change, but it's something that has happened, and we have to learn to deal with this. We will work hard on training our officers, and as well as training the public with the new law, so they can understand the changes that have been made and how they can better educate themselves as well. Thank you.
It's actually Purdie first.
Oh, no problem. Ready? No. Hearing about this law passing was concerning, but what also concerns me is even if any one of us up here is elected, we're going to have to work with the current admin now so that there's a smooth transition over to what's going to take place. I believe that law goes in effect in the beginning of July, and that's going to give Sheriff Swain 6 months to try to get something figured out. I would love to be able to be a part of that team to address this issue. But being a current public servant and taking care of the community, my real concern is not my safety, as I feel I do a very good job, and so do the deputies that work with me, but my concern becomes that for the public. If you're timid when it comes to weapons, if you're scared of guns, let's call it what it is. If you don't like guns and you're in line at Kroger and the person in front of you is open carrying and the person behind you is open carrying, that could be a very scary situation for a lot of people. So I think we should really work towards educating the public on what can be done, what steps can be taken, maybe explaining more the legalities of this so that people aren't scared when they see a weapon. It's unfortunate that I believe that's going to become the norm, but you could be in line at McDonald's, you could be in, wherever, and you're going to see guns, whereas before it was random, or it was rare to see somebody just openly carrying a weapon. So I think that's something that we need to focus on, and that's something that we need to help work with the public on. So thank you.
Angie Purdie, do you believe that the Sheriff's Department is adequately staffed and trained? If not, how do you plan to address the situation?
Right. When assuming a governmental office, it's important to make educated and informed decisions. I don't know at this point in time if we're adequately staffed. One of the first things that I would do, or that anybody should do, is look at the efficiency and efficacy of our numbers and definitely ensure that we are providing the safety that is necessary for our community and for our officers who are on the street. Retaining and recruiting is also an issue. It's very difficult to retain our officers right now. This is not a good time to be an officer. And so retaining those and recruiting them is very difficult. Regarding training, all of our officers are adequately staffed or adequately trained, as was asked. However, I think that all of our officers would need to be trained in the CIT, interpersonal communications, mental health first aid, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Training is a key component to keeping officers happy in their retention and recruitment, and we want to ensure that each officer is able to grow and be allowed to pursue the education that will make them a better officer. So that is my answer to whether or not we're adequately staffed or trained.
No sheriff's department is ever fully and adequately trained due to the fluidity and ever-changing nature of law enforcement. Every day we encounter challenges from new street drugs, new types of crime, and technologies that make breaking the law that much easier. As your next sheriff, I believe we need to enhance our training protocols to ensure that we are always up to date on the latest technologies and trends. We need to have our finger on the pulse of the needs of our community as our officers reflect the people they serve. If we are seeing an increase in calls related to mental health, we need to adequately train our officers to understand those folks' conditions. In addition, I would also like to add positions in the form of community resource officers as well as social workers to assist the officers on these calls. If we are seeing an increase in calls relating to trafficking or elevated levels of gun violence, then we need to increase focus on means to identify these problem areas and address them. I would increase the diversity among the staff. When positions open up, recruit for more diverse individuals with more diverse backgrounds that are seeking a career in law enforcement, including women. Training leads to better safety for our officers and a safer community overall. Our officers deserve a good education, and as sheriff, I would like to assure you that each and every one of them would get the training and education they need to not just be the best officer they can be, but to further their careers in the Monroe County Sheriff's Department.
So one of the questions has to do with, do you believe the Sheriff's Department is adequately staffed and trained? And if not, how do you plan to address the situation? So I want to start by addressing the staffing issue. I don't know if most of you know that the Sheriff's Department, each shift contains 11 people. Generally on any night, we have 4 people working to patrol all of Monroe County. So I'll let you answer that question. Do you think that we are adequately staffed to protect every citizen in Monroe County? The answer is absolutely no. And as the sheriff, I would want to add more staffing to our department to include our social workers. It took us a while to all realize it. Officers here at the agency realize that social workers in our field is a necessity now. Also, nothing against Sheriff Swain. Sheriff Swain has done his best to add diversity. He has went out and he has tried to get diverse members of our agency, but as it still stands today, I am one of 2 African Americans that work at this agency, and we are a 50-man department almost, including everybody on our department. That is unacceptable. We have 1 female deputy. She happens to be in charge of the detective division. Unacceptable. We need more staffing. We need better trained. As the next sheriff, we look into adding more de-escalation tactics, how to better deal with people in the public. Just use your talking skills to deal with people. Will get you a long ways. Over the years, policemen, I'll be the first to tell you, we're hard-headed and we're not used to change. We have to change the way we police our communities. We can't continue the way we are at this day and age. You see all the other things that are happening in other agencies across the world. We can't allow that to happen here in Bloomington. We need the change, and the change starts with conversations, talking to people, social workers, diverse communities. Our residents have the right to be able to be patrolled by people that look like them. Thank you.
With the question being asked, the utilization of the word adequate to me was interesting. Are we adequately staffed? Sure, because I'm out there working every day and I can tell you we get the job done when we have to. Whether it's myself and 3 deputies and there's only 4 people on shift at night from 11 till 7 a.m., do we get the job done? Yes, we do. If you need help, will we be there? Yes, we will. But adequate is not what you want with your department. You want your departments to be excellent. So I do believe that we need to have additional deputies on the road. Our numbers should be much higher than what it is with the population of Bloomington. But just the terminology of adequate to me was interesting because we do the job. We 100% do everything we can. I got guys out there that would take a bullet for me as I would for them. So I believe that's way more than adequate. So we do what we need to do and we do it effectively, but I believe we could do it much better and we could reach out and have a bigger impact in this community if we had more people on the road. As far as training, one of the areas I think we've kind of dropped the ball in for quite a while is dealing with people who don't have English as a first language. I'm one of very few people in the department that speak Spanish. That's primarily because my stepfather came from Mexico originally and I grew up in an environment unlike most people. So I had influences from both my small town and then living in the region or Northwest Indiana. But I think that's something we need to do is we need to teach our deputies some practical Spanish. There's far too many times that we deal with the situation and the deputy knows no more than hola. So we need to do a better job because when I get called and they need a Spanish-speaking officer, I might be 10 minutes away, I might be 15 minutes away, and that 10 or 15 minutes can make a huge difference when you have an individual who's scared, who thinks they're going to be taken to jail, who's worried about what's going to happen, and they have no way to communicate. So that's one area I think we need to work on as well. What everyone's mentioned, there needs to be a lot more training done, and that's just the environment we live in. But that's my take on it. Thank you.
So we always could use more personnel, always. So when the state police assists other agencies, that's the whole purpose, to provide more support and personnel. So we do work together when need be, and we also support each other when need be. So the service will be there. As far as training goes, for the past 8 years, what I've been doing is providing training to multiple agencies, and I'm referring to in the tens of thousands of officers. So I will bring that to Monroe County Sheriff Department. But at the same time, I also want to bring a robust outreach program for the community, because the time to actually talk to the community is not when a crisis is taking place. It's when things are at a certain level that cool heads prevail and we have an honest conversation. Because one of the goals that I want to do as the next sheriff is truly have a compassion, understanding, be able to sit down and talk to people, because I don't want them to fear of us. One thing also that I would like to do is to make sure the Hispanic population in Bloomington is not fearful of the police. At the present time they are, and that's not good. Every chance that I get to stand in front of them and talk to them in their language and explain to them the do's and don'ts when you come across a police officer, that's a success for me. Because when I hear people say, I'm afraid of the police, that's not good. So as far as can we use more manpower? Yeah, we can. Every department does. As far as training, oh yeah, we'll definitely continue to do what we do now in different areas. And the main thing for me, I want to make sure that we train every single person in the sheriff department, not only the deputies, but every single person, to include the civilians as well. Thank you.
Angie Stalcup. How would you avoid overcrowding in jail? And how would you go about advocating for safer working conditions within the jail?
Overcrowding of our county jail is a direct result of the opioid and drug crisis we're experiencing throughout the whole state. Monroe County has been hit hard. At one time, we had doctors in our own county writing 108 prescriptions for every 100 people in our county. Tell me how that makes sense. To ease overcrowding, the settlements that the state has sought from some of the bad actors that fueled this crisis should go to pay for drug education in our community and to help ease the problem of addiction throughout Monroe County. As sheriff, I would also advocate for an examination of our budget and ask that some of those funds be spent increasing our staffing in the jails and providing proper support to those officers currently working in our jail to make sure they maintain their career and continue to serve our county. Utilizing the Stride Center, which is a diversion program that is 24/7, 365. It could potentially prevent the individual being brought in from having to go into the jail or the hospital that's already overcrowded. So that will ease some of the overcrowding. Overcrowding alone poses a risk for correctional officers. While the suggestions made will put a Band-Aid on the issue at hand, the fact remains that the antiquated facility we currently have needs to be addressed. I would work with the Commissioners' Council and stakeholders to advocate for a new facility that would not only address the overcrowding, but it would provide a safer and healthier environment for not only the correctional officers, but the people being housed there. We need a more permanent resolution, not a temporary fix.
When I worked at the jail 25 years ago, we housed the same amount of people that we currently house, and that is right around 280 inmates is what we're allowed to have within the facility. Probably 15 to 20 years ago, I remember an injunction was filed because of the overcrowding that we had in the jail, and we still have guidelines to this day of making sure we don't go over the 300 mark. Those are things that need to be changed. I'm an advocate for a new facility. It's something that we definitely need to change because of the overcrowding. But one of the things that I want to do as sheriff to help eliminate repeat offenders, because that's a big problem. If a lot of you don't know, a lot of our people that we have in our jails, they're repeat offenders. I mean, it's a constant cycle. Again, as our plan as the sheriff, I plan on hiring a social worker and as a member of the department, have somebody on our department, even if it's me as the sheriff, prior to an inmate's release. We want to be able to speak to them. If it's a long-term inmate that's been with us for 6 months to a year, we want to speak with them prior to them being released to figure out what we can do to keep them from coming back. Right now, we just released them. I'm not saying we don't have programs. We have programs to help them, but we need to physically sit down and figure out what they need to keep them from coming back to our facility. I know that gets a little bit off the topic of the question, but again, it would help hopefully make more room in our facility. And as far as the main question with what my plans are as far as a new facility, I would love to have a new facility. It's something that we would sit down with the commissioners and the council and discuss in hopes of building it. There goes my voice, it's going out on me. In hopes of building a new facility for our prisoners. And again, the morale and also the staff for our staff, a new facility would also help our staff mates too as well with the morale and the other issues. And he's staring at me and I'm just gonna shut up. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I had to swallow there. When it comes to the overcrowding issue, this is something that I'm very familiar with, as when I worked in the jail, not as long ago as Troy did, but when I was there, that's when the population was at its highest, and that's when the lawsuit was filed. The population was well over 300. It was not a safe environment. Officers routinely on jail checks would have to step over inmates to check the cells at night. So it was a very unsafe environment, and I don't feel as though we should ever let the numbers get that high again until we do have an adequate place to house the inmates. Now, with that being said, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I'm a local business owner. I have several friends and individuals I know that run businesses, and there's a huge labor shortage right now. It's very difficult to find skilled employees that actually want to maintain employment and want to show up when they're supposed to. So I had gears started turning in my head a little bit, and I said, how can we make the jail better? How can we have an individual be better when they leave than when they arrived, other than just treatment or some of the things offered currently? So over the last several weeks and months, talking with individuals, talking with other officers, talking with people in the court systems, came up with a plan, and we just recently unveiled it. We're going to call it the Sheriff's Career Path. And what this does is, as the Sheriff's Department, I want to begin to facilitate bringing in individual employers or individuals that want to be able to train incarcerated individuals with a new job or skill. This is going to be something that will begin in the jail, and kind of like the work release program, we would like to be able to have those individuals maybe job shadow or just begin to work with other individuals so they can learn a new skill. So that way when they're released, they have not only a job waiting for them, but they have a skill that they did not have prior. That's going to give them the chance to earn a living wage. That's going to give them the chance to attain sustainability that they would not have had prior. So an individual gets a chance at redemption, so that even when they were at their lowest point and got arrested, upon their release, there's no lag in time. There's no, basically we just want to cut down that time so they can have the pride that they once did, and they can have that sustainability for them and their families. Thank you.
My platform is to reduce the percentage of people returning back to the prison. Now, we need to have programs in the prison and also outside to support each other. We need a facility that could do that. Right now, the facility is just not big enough for that. And I know people cringe when we say we need a new facility, but we do. Not to have more people inside, but to help the people that need help in the proper way. What I mean by that? If we have someone that's mentally ill, we need to give them some type of counseling support inside and out. If we have a person that wish to obtain their GED, we should be able to provide that as well in the system and help them to support outside and hopefully get them a certain skill. If we have someone that has anger management problems, well, we could provide that service inside the system and also support that individual outside the system as well. So that is just one small way of doing certain things as far as reducing the number. There are other issues, for example. If you come across, and me and you referring to law enforcement, we got to acknowledge that if someone is in crisis, the last place maybe you want to take them to the jail. We have to have other resources. And receive training from other organizations that has nothing to do with law enforcement. I was very fortunate to be trained by the National Alliance of Mental Illness. That organization does tremendous work. So we could expand on the training from other organizations and work together to reduce the percentage of people going into jail and or returning to jail.
Okay, my understanding is the question is, how would we address overcrowding and provide safer working conditions, correct? Okay. First of all, the sheriff is one of about 8 different agencies that all funnel into or bring people into the Monroe County Jail. And they are actually not the one who brings in the most people. That's generally our Bloomington Police Department that has the most people that are brought into our county jail. Without having an intercept in place prior to someone being booked in, the sheriff has no control over those people who are now into their facility. That authority lies with our state legislation, our bail process, our pretrial release process, and the judge. Because once somebody is booked into our facility, we don't have any control over that person. We don't know, we can't say how long they are or who they are. It's going to stay in there. So it's important that we have these intercepts in place before anybody is even brought to our facility. That's the only way the sheriff is going to have any way to affect the number of people, the overcrowding situations. As far as the safety is concerned, we're doing the best that we can possibly do with an aged facility that was never designed correctly in the first place, and it is known within the state of Indiana as the worst county jail out of 92 counties. So, as everybody else has clearly stated, we have to have a new facility, and that is going to rely upon the shoulders of our Board of Commissioners and our County Council, and you, because we need to advocate for the kind of facility that Monroe County expects and needs. Thank you.
All right, this is the home stretch. Andrew Thomas. Thank you for speaking tonight, and if you could please provide a closing statement. You have a minute and a half.
He said this is the home stretch. I guess he hasn't been listening to me speak tonight. I'll make it quick. 30 years ago, I grew up in the city of Bloomington here off of West 7th Street. I'm a child of the Banneker Community Center, as most of us know as the West Side Community Center. I had this dream of one day becoming a policeman, not only a policeman, but a sheriff's deputy here in Monroe County. I made that happen. I was very fortunate, and I thank God for those opportunities. Sorry. It's not that I haven't lost what I was going to say. I'm just trying to hold back a tear or two, and that is honestly. When I started working at the Sheriff's Department, I never thought that I would be able to stand here in front of you asking you for a vote for Monroe County Sheriff. My older brother's sitting over here. The last time I tried to speak was in front of my dad. And my dad had some tears, and every time I think about that, it brings me to the tears. I have a chance to make history, not once, but twice. What I didn't tell you earlier, when I started working at the Sheriff's Department, I was the first and only black to work on the road division. I want to be the first sheriff of Monroe County. No offense to these guys. I've been here since I was 14 years old. I've waited my turn. May 3rd, vote for Troy Thomas for sheriff. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I want to say thank you for listening to all of us and our ideas. I think what we need to focus on is there a need for a new jail? Sure. If anyone has any idea of how those things work, it would probably be years before that jail would be able to be utilized. So what you're going to need is a sheriff that can make things happen, a sheriff that can adapt and overcome, which is what I do and what I do well. I can figure out answers to problems we have now. I have practical solutions to what's facing our department. I work well with every deputy on the road, other agencies, and I look forward to continuing that. I'm not going to sit up here and yell at anyone. I know Troy. Troy was the best man in my wedding. Troy is a great guy. He's very passionate about what he does. Yeah. What I want to say is that as much as this is about first, this is also about people that can get the job done. And that's where I believe I'm going to do a great job at this. If elected as your sheriff, I will utilize efficiency, professionalism, and try to take our department from good to great to excellent. Thank you.
So my life experience, where I was raised, the training that I received from multiple different departments, particularly with the Indiana State Police, and to reach the level of captain, I want to be a sheriff, and if I am the sheriff, what I want to do, one, is definitely increase the training for the entire department. 2, increase public safety. 3, have a robust outreach program, and also provide the service that we need to provide to the citizens of Monroe County. Now, I want to thank all of you for giving us your time and your patience, and also for the labor union. I truly appreciate your time, and thank you for everything.
Okay, remember at the beginning of this whole meeting, I said change is required. I am that change. I am in my 9th year as the administrator for Monroe County government, serving under the Board of Commissioners. I manage multiple levels of personnel, budgets, policy, procedures, and interdepartmental communications for all offices. I oversee our county buildings. I have 9 direct staff members. However, I serve as a higher authority for 5 other departments that are under the Board of Commissioners, kind of like the vice principal, I guess. And I manage the Board of Commissioners' multi-million-dollar budgets. I have a 15 years experience working as a probation officer, meeting offenders where they are, recognizing success is different for each person, and providing them with the best opportunity to be successful. I have actually 25 years experience in Monroe County government. I know how to run a big business because county government's a big business. And the sheriff's office is a big business. I know how to work within our system, work within our judicial, executive, legislative, and fiscal bodies within Monroe County government. I also know that every time any person is arrested and put into our facility, we inflict harm on them and their family. Mary Angelou says, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. We all know better. Time to change. Vote for me, Angie Purdie, for sheriff. Thank you. Sorry.
I guess I'm last. I don't want to mess that up. I want to thank the Southern Indiana Area Labor Federation for the opportunity to let the community hear the candidates' goals so they can make an informed decision when it comes time to vote. I chose to run for this office because I feel it's time to address the mental health and substance use crisis in this county, one that is plaguing the entire nation, but I have personal interest in it in the county. Substance use and mental health crisis are taboo subjects for most. They affect everyone. They don't discriminate. We need to address this head on. Almost everyone that goes into the jail as an inmate has a mental health crisis or a substance use disorder. You can't deny that. As the role of sheriff, you have the ability to intervene. An intervention to better equip those being released back into our community with life skills and self-worth so they don't become a habitual or repeat offender. One that would give them the opportunity to become a productive member of our community and perhaps make amends for the bad choices that they made. We need to break down the stigma that all officers are bad officers and get back to the community policing and interacting with our school corporation. In doing so, you can gain the trust of the community and great citizens of Monroe County. Diversity, transparency, accountability, communication, specialized training, additional resources, compassion, and integrity. That is what I will bring to this position. To the public in attendance, again, I thank you. I'm Joani Stalcup, and I would appreciate your vote.